and I switched to English. We will speak English on this panel, and we have three really interesting keynotes. And we'll start with Eileen Tuser. She is Managing Director of Pfizer Germany. And on this panel, we will talk about how data has the potential to rescue lives and what learnings we can take from the Corona-Pandemic and what kind of future opportunities are there based on data and how we can improve healthcare. So, Eileen.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. So you will give us the first impulse on this panel. So the format is that we have three impulses and you are there to start. And then we'll have a discussion afterwards.
Perfect. Many thanks, Inga. Are you able to see my screen as well?
Yes, we see your slides and we see you.
Perfect. That is great. So good morning again. Happy to be here and happy to be in this dialogue together with my colleagues. I am going to speak more about the health data and the importance of the health data that was demonstrated in COVID-19 pandemic. And actually, I guess today we listened to European Commissioner Stella Kyriakides when she was also mentioning the importance of health data that was demonstrated during this pandemic, especially on two aspects. One was for research and development for innovative products for vaccines and also innovative therapeutic products for the pandemic, but also how we can utilize the health data to adjust our public policy response to the pandemic. And in two aspects, we feel that it was so visible during the past 2 years, how important health data was. And I'm going to talk about more about the real world evidence, the real world data that is so crucial, both for pharma companies, innovative pharma companies to continue the research and development of their vaccines and therapeutics, but also how important it is for the decision makers and public policy governance to make the right in time adjustments to their policies. So in the pandemic, it was so obvious that we had vividly seen how COVID-19 vaccine real world evidence was so key when it comes to understanding the data for the some subgroups or in the course of the therapy, in the course of the time, how we had to adjust the usage of the vaccines according to the needs and also to follow up the safety and the efficacy of the new therapeutics in the real world setting. This was very important. Most of the data came from UK, US, and Israel, and Germany was behind the scenes, not at the forefront on this real world evidence, unfortunately. This was also very important when it comes to policy management, and especially the management of the data in the real setting in Germany. And I'm going to share with you some examples on how important was it and what was the gap in Germany. For example, we didn't collect contextual data when it comes to infection contextual data like commute, occupation, the household living conditions, which was so important to evaluate when we are evaluating the infectious and the trend of the infections. And this was not in the Infection Protection Act, so this data was not collected in Germany. Or the data sets that were sent to RKI were usually insufficient and incomplete. So 1/5 of the infectious, we do not know if the patient was vaccinated, fully vaccinated, or partially vaccinated. Or we didn't have the coordinated monitoring of the hospitalization rate until July 2021. This came at a later stage, and this was a very important input actually when it comes to managing the following the trend of the infections. So what I would like to say is that real world evidence was not there to help the authorities to make the right decisions within the Germany context. And what is the reason for that? I believe there is one important reason, which is of course, the complexity of the German healthcare system, where it is highly fragmented. What we think and what we believe is going to be important is to have the interconnected data across the healthcare system that will require meaningful and coherent solutions. So for this, we support the national, but also the European-wide health data space, where we are hoping that there will be consistent and coherent data that will come. And also we are very much supportive that this coalition agreement also announced the health data utilization law, with the innovative research-based companies to be able to access to the health data in the future. So with this, I'm going to also talk about how important it was to create those networks and collaborations across nations when there was this lack of data. And actually, there are very good examples like WHO, who had set up platforms to manage the exchange of data. And FDA and EMA had already quickly agreed on standardizing, to agree on common standards so that the pharma companies could easily and have exchange of data. We are supporting Accumulus Synergy, a data space platform, which is really an interesting one. Where this was created in 2020, where it is a cloud-based platform, which is enabling the regulatory authorities as well as innovative companies to exchange data on a real-world setting, but also to be able to submit, hopefully in the future, to submit their applications through this setting. This is going to be one of the major impacts and major changes in the future, where the real world evidence or real world data will have an impact on a real-time basis, hopefully in the future. So with this, I am going to talk about, while the health data is important, of course, turning this health data into insights and into knowledge is also very critical. And that's where artificial intelligence and all those digital tools or analytic tools will come into our space. And there are so many good examples that are emerging, and we are happy to be part of some of them. One example I would like to share is the smart data query, which is a great one and an important impact in the COVID-19 vaccine development. That's why I wanted to share the recent one. Normally, when a clinical trial ends, there is a cleaning up process. There's a data cleaning process that the data scientists clean up all those patient data, all those codes for miscoding or inconsistencies, so that the data is cleaned before it goes to further analysis to the scientists. In the COVID-19, and this takes around 30 days manually. So in the COVID-19 vaccine trial, phase 2-3 trial, this was artificial intelligence tool was used. It's called Smart Query, where the data set was cleaned up in 22 hours and in one day was ready to be submitted to the authorities to further evaluation of the scientific data. So how important these data tools will be further when it comes to making these real world evidences, all that health data valuable and insightful for the future in a short period of time, I wanted to share. And with this, I would like to close my topic. I am hoping that I did share a few important notes on health data and how important that is, and hand over back to you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Eileen. And we come to our second guest on this panel. Dr. Wirtz, you will talk about AI support and how we can use data actually to improve healthcare, also in oncology. So Dr. Med Hans Christian Wirtz is Head of Government Affairs and Policy at Johnson & Johnson Deutschland.
So now it's always the technology which I need to handle a little bit here. Wait a second.
Now we can hear you perfectly.
Now you can hear me perfectly, and maybe you can also see my slides as soon as I switch over here, and now it should work, hopefully, for everybody.
Now it works.
Yeah, let me go back. So thanks a lot for introducing, and I handled already the most difficult ones, so the technology. So thanks for inviting me. I'm the head of government affairs here, and I'm also a physician by education. And so far, it speaks really today to my heart that we are talking about health data and how do we use artificial intelligence in order to support better decision-making in medicine. And I thought I'd bring you an example which we have developed, which is away from the Corona-Pandemic. It's more focused on hematology. And we have, as Johnson & Johnson here in Germany, developed that project together with the Leipzig University and also with the Innovation Center of Computer-Assigned Surgery in Leipzig. And that already illustrates how important partnering in those kind of questions is today. And therefore, I think it is a very interesting example, in my opinion. We often refer to data as the new gold or the new oil in our century. I think it's important to note that data, at least from the Renaissance onwards, were always the basis of creating insights in medicine. However, what has changed into the past is, of course, that the amount of data which we are having today is so much bigger now. And insofar, it's really a question, how can we effectively use those data which we are creating? So we are moving away from a syndrome-based medicine into a really tailor-made, individualized therapy. And therefore, we have so many data available that we really believe we need to have support which is coming from artificial intelligence and also computing power in order to what we believe is our core mantra. And the core mantra for us is providing the right therapies at the right time to the right patients. And if you think about it, the sheer amount of data which we are creating every second at this point in time is unbelievable. It is not only clinical data and research findings, which are coming out every day. You can see it in the Corona pandemic, but also in oncology. It's a tremendous amount of data which is coming out. But it's also the different sources where we collect data from. So from wearables, from electronic patient records, from digital health applications, so that we utilize all this information in order to design what is the next perfect therapy for patients and to provide better outcome to patients. So at Johnson & Johnson, we really believe that cooperating with various partners from academia, but also from technology, that creates much better treatment pathways for patients, and therefore we are providing or we are utilizing all evidence which is currently available. In order to do that, there are a number of prerequisites which are really mandatory in order to orchestrate and to apply AI in an appropriate way. The one thing which is really needed, and Eileen already referred to it, it is the collection of structured data. We need to agree on an alphabet how we want to use data in the future, and so that we really collect data in a structured way so that we can utilize all these data sources. And the other thing is, of course, that those data need to be interoperable. So everybody needs to feed into the same system so that we all can utilize those kind of data. And that, I think, is another very important prerequisite here for the future. One example which I would like to show, our AI-based decision-making tool, what we call KITE, knowledge and AI-based decision-making in hematology. Because in critical insight in hematology, many of those complex blood cancers is you really have not the one standard therapy anymore, because you have so many different specific patient situations that it is not a standard therapy, it is really a customized, tailored therapy which you would like to apply. And in order to illustrate what Kite does to patients, I have prepared a little video which I hope I can play now to you, and that you can see it on the screen, and which will illustrate a little bit how Kite works.
Introducing Kite. Kite is a decision support platform that will provide hematologists with highly innovative solutions to support medical case evaluation and therapy decision making for patients with MDS, AML, and MM by using artificial intelligence and machine learning. It follows an integrated approach by not only allowing you to evaluate patient cases, but also providing you with an overview of your past and future tumor board meetings, as well as the cases that have been or will be discussed. It also gives you the option of asking your colleagues for a second opinion on a patient that you have been evaluating with Kite. To start the case evaluation, you can simply create a new case, or as in this example, look at an already existing patient case. In the patient's digital case file, you can enter all the relevant medical data of the patient, ranging from socio-demographics and diagnosis values to genetic and laboratory findings, as well as therapeutic characteristics and values of patient-reported outcome measures. Case evaluation will be based on clinical practice guidelines, outcomes of retrospective cases, and scientific publications. Let's evaluate this case. The Kite platform lets you know if values are implausible or missing and which patient characteristics it would need to increase confidence and decrease bias when evaluating a case. This is the overview of the case evaluation for our patient, where you can see results of the guidelines evaluation, case data analysis, and case comparisons. Kite also provides you with metrics that will guide your decision. Confidence, bias, and diversity reflect quantity, quality, and heterogeneity of the data analyzed. Kite also shows you relevant publications for your case from its annotated database and allows you to directly access them. Let's look at the decision pathway for our case. Kite shows you all the preceded patient information that it has used to come to a therapeutic suggestion. By using the concept of explainable AI, the implementation of traceable decision pathways will allow a clinical expert to monitor and individually evaluate the automatic conclusions of the algorithm. Additionally, information about causality for each step towards the optimal treatment suggestion is provided next to the quality metrics and publications relevant for your case. Learn more about the platform at kite.health.
I hope. So I hope that has provided you a little bit with an insight how we think about it. And I think it needs those kind of lighthouse projects in order to illustrate what can AI do for the future of a better treatment decision and better medicine. We truly believe everybody is involved. It's a great example of working academia together with industry and what can result out of it. To our opinion, there are three closing remarks or requirements necessary. The one thing is we all need to collect these large amount of data in a structured way. So from clinical trials, from registries, from billing data, and from all other sources, we need to collect those data in the future because that creates insights. The next thing is it needs to be done in a structured way, and those data need to be interoperable, and that is very important. And the last but not least point which I would like to make is the access to data, and Eileen already also referred to it. We are very happy that the new government has now changed the course, that also private industry will get access if they fulfill certain requirements to those kind of data, because that is what creates innovation, which we can provide as a pharmaceutical industry. Because we are trying to identify much more tailor-made and individualized therapies which rely on the insight which we create from data. And therefore, we are on a right path here, what the new German government has provided in their coalition contract. And we're looking forward how that will become the law. So I hope that I have convinced you that J&J and the entire pharmaceutical industry is really going on a mission to identify the right treatment at the right time for the right patient. Thanks a lot for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Hans-Christian Wirth. And our next speaker is Chantal Friebertshäuser. She's CEO of MSD Germany. Good morning, Chantal. And you will share, we switch to the patient journey now and to digital vaccination management.
Well, thank you for the kind introduction, Inga Bergen, and thank you to my colleagues Eileen Tüssel and also to Hans-Christian Wirth for setting the scene so nicely around why data is needed and what artificial intelligence, for instance, means for clinical trials as well as for patients, for the patient journey at the end. And you started, Inga, earlier today, pointing out that we want particularly to learn from the experience during the pandemic. And I would like to start now with a clear statement around vaccination and what we should learn in our books from this experience. The only reason why some people today are now talking about mandatory vaccination for COVID-19 in that country is that as a country, we failed building up a strong culture and infrastructure for health prevention over the last decades. And that's something that you cannot compensate in 1.5 years in a crisis. So we can point out and see, why doesn't it work? Why don't we have 90% coverage rate? I think it could not work because we missed something for 30 years. But we should at least learn that we have no time to lose now. We may not change the culture, by the way, through digitization alone, but we can substantially improve our infrastructure and by that also build a new culture of prevention. Mm-hmm. Because to prevent avoidable diseases and to better respond to future health crises, we need innovative therapies, we need innovative vaccines, but at the same time, we also need digital services and data, because that will make our infrastructure for prevention and for vaccination at the end stronger. Interestingly, and just to look back a little bit of history, after we abandoned in Germany the ideas of mandatory vaccination years ago, we unfortunately also abandoned the infrastructure that went with it. Information at school and work, vaccination campaigns at school, at work, or in physician's office. We have neglected public health services. And by that, we have neglected to maintain an up-to-date immunization infrastructure. And obviously, this kind of applies to the digital dimension of it as well, because if you don't have the ground culture and infrastructure, it is not easy to digitalize them and to compensate everything through digitization. And the reason why I make this point. We all have seen a vaccination campaign in the acute pandemic needs digital processes, obviously. It is crucial to vaccinate quickly and in a targeted manner, and to avoid contacts instead of making people stand in queues where they can even infect each other. And yet, all too often, digitization has rather been perceived as part of the problem instead of being part of the solution. And why? And I think we heard a lot about that. It's about data availability, but it's about connecting the data in the way that you can use it the way you need it when you need it. First example, the vaccination invitations. At the beginning of the pandemic, it was important to vaccinate the vulnerable groups first. However, the billing data available from the sick funds is old and inaccurate. Far too many eligible individuals did not receive the invitations. Personal vaccination codes arrived by post mail and first had to be transferred back into digital portals, and those initially, by the way, collapsed under immense number of requests. The second example I want to make is the lack of digital immunization registry. And the Bitkom won very early at the start of the vaccination campaign about that. And today, where are we? In Denmark, the invitation to the booster comes via cell phone message from the electronic patient record. The city of Vienna books appointments for all the unvaccinated on the basis of the Austrian immunization registry. And what is the situation in Germany? We have various apps on our cell phones that know nothing about each other, and analog vaccination records have to be laboriously redone. And 9 months after the launch of the vaccination campaign, the vaccination progress is determined by a telephone survey because we don't have a registry. And the question is, how do we make our system fit for future challenges? Much has been prepared, so we have made big progresses we can leverage on. The technology for the electronic patient record is in place. This is really an asset. The digital vaccination certificate, referred as ImpPass, can be a valuable part of the digital portfolio. But there is also fear for change. Some say everything is going too fast and costs too much. But I think the opposite is true. We have to act today. We need to connect the diverse solutions now so that we can benefit from better care today and tomorrow. And whoever thinks today, it is, by the way, too late for COVID-19, for the pandemic anyway, so why don't we just take our time? I think that is a big mistake. We have no time to lose, and I will tell you why. In the shadow of the acute COVID-19 crisis, other prevention steps like checkups, other immunization have dropped, and the consequences will be huge. Vaccination has never been more in the spotlight than it was today. COVID-19 is the largest vaccination campaign in the nation's history. But at the same time, numbers of medical checkups and standard immunizations for other diseases have dropped. Adult or teenager vaccinations in particular, such as, for instance, against HPV, a virus responsible for 1 out of 20 cancers, are seeing a drop of about 30% in 2021. And that's not the only example. There are many other adult or teenager vaccinations that see exactly the same. The same is happening for cancer screening. The rate of cancer screening have dropped significantly. And we are talking about cancer, something that kills 220,000 people every year in Germany. Even before the pandemic, if I come back to this HPV vaccination example, not even 30% of 18 years old teenagers people were vaccinated before the pandemic. It is one of the lowest rates in the industrialized countries. And now, on top of that, this drops through the pandemic because people don't go to wellness visits. Add in a similar ratio for cancer screening, and we have an avalanche of new cancer cases rolling towards us in the next few decades. And that are all diseases that we could avoid or we could treat earlier if that would happen. So that's one of the reasons why we need to act now. And in my books, by the way, we do not need to talk about mandatory vaccination for the future. But we definitely need to talk about systematic prevention information, reminder, on-site vaccination offering. We will only achieve vaccination goals if we finally fulfill our duty to inform and remind. A national prevention strategy is needed. This includes establishing a digital vaccination management system. And this will help us to close the gap in standard immunizations and prevent diseases. And at the same time, and the literature is very clear about that, if you establish a resilient standard immunization infrastructure, you strengthen your healthcare system and your ability to effectively respond to acute pandemics in the future. So digitization simplifies the vaccination management through a pathway that smartly links patients to the right information, reminders, and services in their own community and everyday life. And I want to mention 4 very practical must-haves in my books. The first one is the ImpPass. The ImpPass has to become not only a booklet, in e-format, but a personal immunization manager. In everyday life, vaccination appointments often get lost. I know that for myself, and I know that as a mother, right? People forget when the next vaccination is due, or simply don't remember to make an appointment for a booster. The introduction of the digital vaccination certificate, the InfPass, in the electronic patient record must therefore be more than a digital copy of the yellow booklet. It has to provide patients with a personal immunization manager, a digital personal vaccination coach who educates me and tailors a plan according to the latest scientific knowledge, and who, when necessary, remotivates and nudges me when necessary. The second point is a vaccination invitation, a so-called recall, connected with relevant information and appointment management. Many parents may never have heard of HPV or rotavirus or you name it. In the future, they will receive a vaccination invitation directly from their electronic patient record, can call up for more in-depth information, start a chat, and make an appointment for vaccination directly in the evening before they go back to their routine. A recall entry, the re-invitation to complete the vaccination series, is created on the spot, ideally in the doctor's office. And there is good literature about that. A study conducted in the US a few years ago showed that parents not only respond positively to connect via digital channels, but they also make additional vaccination appointment. My third point is widespread use of the electronic patient record. With opt-out, we go in the right direction. The fourth one is vaccines must go where the people are. And COVID-19 has proven that. At MSD, we are convinced that digital tools can improve the adoption of such programs, for example, in schools. The fact that the plan manager of the Federal Center of Health Education merge now with RKI, that's a great opportunity to digitally rethink educational offerings and the structures for the public health service from the ground up. So as a conclusion, what we need is a commitment of many. Only if we work together, politics, medical profession, public health service, health insurance, manufacturers of software, but also pharmaceutical industry and many more, we could make it work, but we have to pull all of that together. And that is how we can achieve then a digitization boost, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chantal. And I found this super interesting because there's one common ground. We need more data to improve everything from prevention to diagnosis to treatment management to public health management in case of a pandemic. And I really like this panel to see you three on the same page. And I would like to ask Eileen, is this a new kind of vibe in the pharmaceutical industry, that it's very clear that this is a collaborative task that needs to be done in collaboration?
I think this is not new, but this is so good to have. And we have seen in the pandemic even the collaboration, how important it is. For us, it is the transatlantic cooperation to develop and bring a COVID-19 vaccine, but also it is the collaboration between the pharmaceutical companies, also with the healthcare authorities, and also with science academia, and also the supply chain, which is also critical. What I have observed in the last 2 years, what made the difference, what made this in a beat of time, this agile, is the focused approach when every effort is very much focused on the fight against pandemic. So everybody with their own strengths, the pharma companies with their own strengths, the regulatory authorities with their own strengths, the supply chain, the distributors with their own strengths, everybody contributed to the most that they can to beat this pandemic with science. So I hope that we can continue this with the same focus to manage the health data now. for the future.
Yes, and I mean, we see these super interesting examples of data use also in other fields than the pandemic, such as oncology, as you pointed out, Dr. Hans-Christian Würz. This was a kind of lighthouse project. What did you learn as a pharmaceutical company from this collaboration with science, and what do you expect from it for the future?
I mean, the important insight is, of course, that the world is our lab today. So it is not this, let's say, we are sitting in one company and researching certain medicines. It's done with academia. It's the fast exchange of those insights which fosters then new innovation, in our opinion. And then one very important prerequisite is, of course, intellectual property, because as soon as you have ensured that you have these rights, you can exchange these insights very easily so that you really can work together on those kind of new information. And that is what makes it so interesting. You have so many great ideas in academia to utilize it, and then our capability is to scale it and to bring it to the entire world so that patients faster benefit from what we create in our different innovation areas. And I think that is the important insight from those projects, and the trust which you can build amongst scientists is unbelievable.
Yeah, thank you for pointing that out. And my last question goes to you, Chantal, because you highlighted the patient journey. And this is also, I would say, a new area for pharmaceutical companies to look closely at the patient journey and at the different steps to support. What kind of collaboration models are needed to gain this perspective and to really develop solutions along patient needs?
Yeah, absolutely. Because at the end, what we want is to have faster and better outcome for patients. And that's a common goal. So ideally, it's the right collaboration that you need upfront in the research, including digitization. We had very good example in AI, what's happening. But I think the big shifts that are happening is now more in the patient journey, as you mentioned. And there we are very used in working with academia in research. We are very used in working with other companies, small biotech, big companies, to produce. We are working with Johnson & Johnson to produce the vaccines against COVID-19. We work with Ridgeback to develop the COVID-19 product. So that's we are used to. But I think the difference what we need now is a very different thinking of what is public-private partnership and how can we work together with politics, with the sick funds, with patients association, with physician association, in order to have a common view on this patient journey and what needs to happen to, at the end, increase quality of life, increase survival, etc.
Yeah, thank you so much. Unfortunately, our time is up. I think we could have talked for an hour more because it's really an important topic. So thanks to you, Eileen Tuzel from Pfizer, Dr. Med Hans-Christian Würz from Johnson & Johnson, and Chantal Friebertshäuser from MSD. Thank you very much for your time and sharing these super interesting insights with us.